Hi guys, the BBC can be a bit hit and miss when it comes to holding Tory MPs' feet to the fire, but when they hit, it's wonderful to see. Now, our old friend Chris Philp appeared on the BBC Breakfast Show where he was challenged on him and other Tories jumping on a bandwagon when it came to asylum seeker hotels. But Chris here is not being completely honest. Have a listen.
When the Conservatives were in power and there were asylum seekers housed in hotels, were you at that time encouraging local councils to take legal action against the government?
Well, we didn't need to because we were actually getting the numbers down. So as I said already...
Let's just go through some of the figures.
We didn't need to because...
Just to be clear on this, when the Conservatives were in power, I think the peak number of asylum seekers in hotels was over 50,000. So I'm just curious as to why then Conservative councils weren't seeking to take legal action against the government, but you are now.
Well, the reason is that after that peak was hit, the Conservative government centrally, nationally, took action, which halved that number. It went from 56,000 down to, I think it was 29,000 at the time of the election.
Okay, so what he's trying to suggest here is, look, we created this massive problem of putting asylum seekers into hotels, and then we actually dealt with the problem that we created. Well, somewhat, we halved it. And don't we deserve a bit of credit for that? You know, we, central government, the Conservative Party, looked at this problem that we created and we fixed it to a certain extent. See, the problem here is that you created it in the first place. Robert Jenrick was saying how it was a wonderful idea, along with Priti Patel and Suella Braverman, to move people out of detention centres into ex-hotels. They said it was the solution to the problem. Now, what did they do when it came to bringing the number of hotel use down? Well, they moved people out of those hotels into private rented accommodation. This is why the numbers came down. Not because the Conservatives processed more claims or because they came up with some fresh ideas. No, they just moved some people out of hotels. Now, the main point here is, why did you not protest against the use of hotels at the time? Well, because you were in charge. Of course, you were not supporting councils. Now, there were some councils that did bring cases against the Home Office when the Conservatives were in charge, but the judges ruled against them. So the government won those cases. So the councils had to sit down and shut the F up. But now that somebody else is in charge and the judge ruled in favour of the councils this time, the Conservatives, of course, smell blood and they're jumping on another bandwagon to try and drive this home. Every council needs to be challenging. He mentioned numbers here, but if the numbers went from 400 down to 200 and they're about 200 now, what is your justification for saying, well, now is the time to take legal action? The councils themselves have not used the numbers as a reason to take legal action. They said that we don't want these asylum seekers in the area because the accommodation, the hotels are not fit for purpose, or that it's attracting disruption to the area. It's nothing to do with numbers.
Went from 400 down to about 200 hotels. So the Conservative government nationally took action and halved the hotel number.
Once again, took action. You created the problem and now you're claiming that you took action to fix the problem.
No way, Mr.
During his
Philp,
last 9 months in office. Well, no, it doesn't, because local councils didn't need to take legal action because the Conservative government were getting hotel numbers down. Had that rate of reduction, But
the number of hotel usage is the same, more or less, today. You can't say, well, there was no reason for them to take action because the number of hotel usage went down. Yes, but it's about the same now. So what has changed since when you were in power and when Labour took over?
If reduction continued beyond the election, we would now actually have no hotels. But unfortunately...
That's complete and utter crap. There would be no hotel use. How can you present that as an argument? Where would the asylum seekers go? Would you move them all into... Unfortunately, Chris Philp wasn't asked here. Where should the asylum seekers go? That would have been an interesting question to ask him. Because some people believe they should go to camps. Some people say that they should be just deported. Some people have said that they should be put in tents.
The Labour government has taken a different approach. Actually, the numbers in hotels went up during Labour's first 9 months in office, and that is why councils, in frustration and anger, are taking legal action. But just to repeat the point, in the last 9 months of the last Conservative government, hotel numbers halved. That was the government doing it, the Conservative government doing it, and therefore local councils didn't need to.
Okay, so one of the reasons I believe why the numbers went up under the Labour government is because the Tories and Reform kept complaining about the cost of the asylum bill. They were saying it's too expensive. So one of the cheaper ways of dealing with asylum seekers is to put them in ex-hotels. You book up a hotel, you put in 300 or 400 people. It's much cheaper than renting accommodation in the private sector, providing facilities for those people in the private sector, or in the private housing sector. It's cheaper to put them in hotels. But as we've seen, there's a massive problem with putting people in hotels. And that's one of the reasons why Labour, it seems, wants to get people out of those hotels, put them into other forms of accommodation. Now, the Conservatives have already jumped on another bandwagon. They're saying, no, don't put these people in rented accommodation. So they started out by saying, at the very beginning of all of this disaster, we need to put people in asylum hotels because we can't process all the claims. We can't process all the claims because we haven't invested the resources. Then they said we brought down the number of people in ex-hotels by moving them into rented accommodation. Now they're against the idea of putting them in hotels because it's convenient for them politically. And they're also against putting asylum seekers in rented accommodation. So where should they go? Camps? Tents? The street? Let me know in the comment section, guys, what do you think? And I'll see you in the next video.